What's up, everybody? Thanks for listening to The Standard. Today we have Kekaula Kaniho. He's ex-Boise State athlete, had a little stint in the NFL, now doing commercial real estate, literally just a huge leader in the young community here in Boise, and I'm sure back home as well. And Kekaula, appreciate you coming.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I got to read something you haven't even read yet.
Sure.
David Moa, an ex-teammate of his, sent this today. The smartest and most instinctual player I've ever been around. What separated him from everyone else on the field was that he knew everybody's job responsibilities better than they did. He was a leader as soon as he stepped on the blue, and he's the true embodiment of what being a Bronco truly is. Nothing beats the person he is off the field, though. Kala went out of his way to know every single one of his teammates, coaches, trainers, janitors, EQ guys, and literally everyone in the facilities because he was just one of those guys who put others before himself. Had tons of success on the field, but always remained the humble kid that he still is to this day. Pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dino's one of my guys, man. Oh, I got the chills listening to that.
What's that mean to you?
It means everything. I mean, showing up day one at that program and in the facility, it's the only thing I cared about was making sure the guys trusted me enough to be out there on the field with them, or off of the field trusted me enough to come to me when they needed something. And so hearing that from a guy like David, who always was the older mentor, the more senior guy. I think when I showed up, he was a junior already. And so that's obviously the guy that's been very successful, does, a lot of the right things, has taken guys under his wing and brought guys with him. So when he has that perspective of me, it means a lot that I kind of did what I hoped I would do. And as long as the older guys and the coaches and people trusted me and knew that I could do my job and contribute to the team, like that's all I wanted to do. And that was the only purpose and goal showing up day one. And then you have guys like that. And then when you get to that position in your career, you have no choice but to sort of do the same thing and make sure the guys that are younger than you know exactly which way to go and how to do it because of great leaders like David and other guys in the facility.
The biggest thing, and we talk about it all the time here for off the field, is to put other people first. Really helped change my company when I started doing that because I definitely was not like that when I first started. But to actually, and we got this message today. I read it to all my guys. Everybody was like, that was the coolest message. And coming from a guy like David who does the same. I mean, David is like one of the best dudes you've ever been around too.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I learned so much from him of how to do that, and it wasn't like when I showed up, they were the older guys and you were the younger guys. Like, come along in the pack and we'll show you how to get in and fit in and, just do your job the best you can and we'll be good to go.
I love it.
Yeah.
One thing don't learn from him is how to do a podcast. I'm sure he'll listen to this too, but man, it was hilarious because I've never seen him flustered or nothing. We brought him in the room. He just started sweating.
That is hilarious.
But he killed it. He had some of the best heavy hitters and his story's unreal, but that was funny. So you went to Kahuku.
Yep.
So we'll get into that about how much better they are than St. Louis, and we can talk about that with
right.
Kamale.
Yep. So all those St. Louis players, man.
Boise State with the Cardinals. Now you're with TOK and commercial real estate.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Give me a little bit of that story. You know what I mean? We don't need to dive into that. I got some other stuff, but kind of, what brought you to Boise, and what was it like playing in Hawaii and one of the best high schools in the state over there? You know what I mean? And then what brought you here?
Yeah, for sure. So growing up back home, Hawaii is a very special place, and we're very family-oriented. I had a very supportive family, mom, dad, brother, sister, grandma, aunties, uncles. Everybody's there, and you're truly raised by a village. And, our responsibility was, hey, do the best you can in football, in school, or in sports, right? In school as a person and contributor to our community and in this family. And hopefully you get the right opportunities to set yourself up and kind of put you ahead in your life. And so I always took that responsibility very seriously. And being the oldest child, I knew my younger siblings were always watching me. And so I knew my ticket and my opportunity to earn a degree in college was through a scholarship. And so that was always a goal of mine. Well, you start off playing for fun, then it becomes a goal where you're like, wait, I could do this and there's something to this. And that wasn't probably until like my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah.
And I went and played at Kahuku, where my family is from. We're third generation there. And I lifted in the weight room with the same weights that my grandpa used and that my dad used. And so it's super
That's awesome.
old school, blue collar, like get in, do the work, and be sort of that tough, disciplined football team. And that's the culture that is created there. And we, win a lot of games. They won the state championship, I think, the last 3 years. I won it 1 year when I was there. So also come from a culture of success and winning. And I came on my official visit here to Boise State, and all of those things and those values just clicked. The family, culture, and atmosphere of the facility.
Were you recruited by Pete or
I was recruited by Harsin.
By Harsin. Cool.
Yep, Harsin was the head coach, and Avalos was the DC. Yep. So those guys recruited me, and I showed up here, and I was like in the facility and with the coaches and seeing the players, and met David on my official visit and was with a bunch of the polys that were on the team then, and just felt like everybody brought me in with open arms and like, hey, we're a family. This is how we get down. This is what we do when we're in the facility, and this is how we hang out outside of the facility. And it's the same thing when you're out in the community. You hear how much Boise State and the football team means to the community, and they bring you in with open arms as well.
Yep.
So that, to me, was exactly how I grew up, and with that value of a strong family backbone and support system.
When you showed up here, one of the first things Kekaula I was close with, and one of the first things everybody talks about, and even David, they talk about, is like you were the smartest guy on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And before we found out that I think you were a national scholar, 4-time All-American, academic, right? Did that come from home, or was that just you? Was that that was a standard your family said, hey, you have to be here? Because obviously, what's that mean? You were a 4.0 all 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, 4.0.
Yeah. Was that, is that, let's go, and again, I'll bring David as an example, maybe even Shiloh and stuff like that. The academics weren't huge for them, but those guys were crazy on the field, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But they talked about how smart you were from the jump, you know what I mean? And one of the biggest things, anytime I ask about you, that's the first thing they say all the time, the smartest guy on the field, you know what I mean? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, I think my parents always emphasized and made sure that school was a top priority in my life. I never was allowed to skip or miss school, and it's like, if you don't get good grades, you're not going to play sports.
Right.
So then I'm like, hey, this is super important from a young age. And I've always had a curiosity in just the process of learning and understanding things that maybe I don't know. And I think it's that curiosity that's driven me not only in school, but also then in football, and then now in commercial real estate, or you just kind of apply that to each of those things. And I grew up, in terms of football IQ, I grew up playing quarterback and then safety. And I think playing quarterback is where I really built that foundation of having an understanding of what every guy's doing. I need to know where the running back is, where my receivers are. You're not setting protections at 10 years old, but, having an idea of what's going on around you. And then on top of that, as soon as the ball is in your hands, you're trying to figure out what the other guys are doing.
Right.
And so I was reading defenses from a pretty young age playing quarterback, and then playing defense when I wasn't playing quarterback, and then being on the reverse side of that as a safety, being the quarterback of the defense. My dad was always a coach of mine growing up, and my quarterback's coach, who's one of our really great family friends, he's an uncle to me. His name's Brian Ayat. He played at the University of Montana and is in their Hall of Fame there. He played quarterback there. And I grew up with his kids, and so he was my quarterback's coach. And he came from a high IQ, high-level football, played in Canada professionally for a long time.
Sweet.
And so he was a mentor to me in terms of learning the game, understanding the game, and same thing from my dad of really putting together all the pieces for why it's important to understand these things. And I'm 5'10", I showed up at 170 pounds, soaking wet.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
To me, I always try to, how can we find pieces that can help coaches or kids, you know what I mean? How are we going to get on the field? You know what I mean? And to me, you showed up as a freshman. Did you start year one?
I did, yeah.
And you already had the defense figured out more than most of the rest of the team, right? I mean, that had to be a huge reason why you got on the field and helped kind of get rid of it, because obviously size was a big issue, especially being a safety, right?
Yep.
But nobody ever cared, and the way that and how hard you played, obviously. But Was that a leverage point for you, or was that just something that you did, or did you show up and say, hey, I know I have these things that I have to overcome, and to me, if I'm the smartest guy in the field, I'm going to be able to hop on the field faster than everybody else?
Yeah, that was exactly it. I showed up. I knew. Look, I didn't get recruited by some schools because I wasn't. If I was a couple inches taller, maybe I would. If I was 10 or 15 pounds heavier, maybe I would. So I already knew coming into it. I'm like, the size, the speed, like a lot of these physical attributes, I don't have yet. I haven't developed into that in term. I'm not going to get much taller, but I can put on weight. I can get faster. I can get stronger. But for me to have an impact right now, I know I'm smarter than any of the other guys that show up here, just because I understand how to prepare. I understand how I learn best. I understand what things I need to sacrifice to spend the time picking up and learning those things. And so showing up, it was like, hey, we go through the summer bridge program and then you go to class. And then I was like, I need to go back into the facility and I need to either get with Kekaula, I need to get with DeAndre Pierce, I need to get with Jordan Happel, I need to get with whoever it was, Evan Tyler, right? These are all older senior guys, Tyler Horton. These guys have played and know exactly what's going on. And I think I can learn something from them. But let me put in the groundwork and try to just build this foundation of understanding the defense, and then ask them, like, hey, what's the next level to this of how I, can fit in and be in a great position to make plays.
Right.
And so I invested in that from day one and was in the playbook probably more than anybody else in my class.
That preparation you're talking about, and you said you knew how to do it as a freshman, so you're obviously doing it in high school, which gets me juiced because I wasn't, and I wish I was. You know what I mean? Everybody always is like, man, I wish I knew then what I know now. How did you prepare?
Yeah.
And was it the same thing back then, or was this like a family thing? It's just kind of just what we did at this school, and this is how we did it, or was it like I knew I always had to be at this level because of my size, or
Yeah.
I mean, where did that come from? And then maybe give me an example of like how you would prepare, because that's one of the hardest things I have to teach with all of my athletes.
Yeah.
They think they can just show up and play.
For sure. Yeah, that comes from my dad. So my dad's story, he played all the sports, football, basketball, baseball, track, really athletic, same size as me, about 5'10". Played both sides of the ball in high school, right? Was all conference, did all the things. But outside of that, he didn't have the work ethic he needed to. He didn't go to school. He was up all night drinking with the boys in high school before a game. And so when high school finishes up, what do I do now? Well, I'm going to just go play JUCO ball in Iowa and then get kicked out of there because I didn't get good grades there. Now I'm going to the West Coast and going to be in Oakland playing JUCO. So his story, which I'm super grateful and blessed to have heard, is, hey, this is the potential I had and we had and you guys have, but I didn't do all the right things outside of that I needed to capitalize on that. And so he's like, I have the blueprint for what not to do, but I also understand through that, here's all the things that I should have been doing, and that if you guys want to take it and run, here's what sort of the roadmap looks like. And he was always a huge he would always emphasize to us, it's all about your habits. Yeah. And so if you build the right habits right now, that's going to set you up for success later. And so for me, those habits were, I knew I had to try to gain weight or try to be as strong as I could. So I need to get up 10 minutes earlier just to eat breakfast. And I need to pack the night before for my snacks throughout the day. And then, after school or after the workout, I need to make sure I have something to eat right away. And that's that preparation of just getting up 10 minutes earlier or making your snacks before. Like, you do that over and over and over again, and it's kind of all you know.
And that's such such a simple thing.
Right. And I think
so
people overcomplicate it. Yeah. It's not
literally, if you woke up 10 minutes earlier and you spent 10 minutes at night getting ready for the next day.
Yeah.
It could change your whole growth, especially over 1 year, 10 years, 18 years.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And actually my dream school in high school was Stanford.
Okay.
And so you think, hey, you need good grades to go there. So I was in the AP classes. I was doing all those things. So then there's the habits in school. Like, I need to make sure that all of my work is done before X point, because then I'm going to be in football from this time to this time. And I need to make sure still I'm the first guy in the weight room to warm up on my own before anybody else is there, because I know I need it for my body. And I think it's just really understanding, you have to be aware of who you are and what your strengths or weaknesses are, and then just have some sort of process. And what I mean by that is have some actions that you follow and do consistently that are going to help you grow in those things. Because if you don't have any process, you don't know when you have an outcome that you were hoping for, or maybe an outcome you weren't hoping for, you don't know what to look back on and what to fix or change or tweak. But if you at least are doing something consistently and are keeping note of what those actions and steps are, that's your habits, and that's your process.
Yeah.
Now, depending on what the outcome is of whatever it is, an exam in school, you didn't get the grade that you wanted, well, look back on that and see how you studied or what questions you asked in class or how focused you were when she was teaching the material, he or she was to you. Look back on that and then pick and pull at where you can adjust it and be better to hopefully have a better outcome. And then vice versa, if you have a great outcome, you have the best game you've had all season, or you do great on a test or whatever, right? Well, look back and be like, what did I do that led to that, and how do I replicate that again and maybe take it one step further? And that was something that my dad instilled in me and us, and that I knew if I focused on, I'd have a shot, right? Like, right. I'm not going to be the guy that wows anybody when they walk in the room of like, he's going to play football D1. It's like they're looking at the 6'5" O-lineman, but I need to do all of these other things on top of that. So they're like, wait, this guy's showing up before anybody else. He's warming up on his own. He's staying after. He's stretching down. His grades are great, right? It's like all of these little things that were able to give me an edge or opportunity in areas that maybe I shouldn't have.
Right.
You know?
No, it's crazy how simple it is, but it's crazy how hard that is to follow.
Yep.
Right? You know what I mean? I think that's so important. Like everything you just said, it's all about the habits, and to be able to realize it that early, like obviously you said with your family, that's so awesome. You know what I mean? It's one of my biggest goals with this podcast, really with the company, with stuff like that, is you know how much we learn in our experience. Can I close that gap with some of our younger kids to where they don't start figuring it out when it's too late? You know what I mean? Because I understand you got to go through some things to figure stuff out on your own.
Yeah.
But can we maybe shrink that gap? You know
totally.
what I mean?
And it's never perfect too, right? It's like you're going to fall in and out of being disciplined and consistent. Then you'll get fatigued or you get tired or whatever it is, or something else will come up, and then you got to snap back into it and be like, okay, let's get back on track, refocus. One of the things that woke me up to that was I had a hip flexor injury after my sophomore year. And before that, I wasn't stretching, I wasn't rolling, I wasn't taking care of my body, I wasn't eating things that were going to contribute to low inflammation or a healthy lifestyle, but also good performance. And so I get injured and I'm out, 3 or 4 months with I think I strained a tendon in my hip. And that's like, now I'm frustrated because I'm like, I need to be out there playing. I have all these things I want to do. Watching everybody else do it and me not being able to do it.
You never want to feel that
I
again.
do not want that feeling again, right? So that's where, like, you can use, if you have something that doesn't go right or have something where you're like, I'm frustrated with this, that's totally normal too. Yeah. Like, use that to fuel you to now it's this much more important because I don't ever want to go through this again. Right. So. But
you also, like, there's no victim mentality in that. Like, I have so many guys, well, I'm too small, I'm probably not going to be able to play, or I'm from Idaho. You were from Hawaii, which it's got to be a little bit more difficult to get recruited, especially when you're undersized. Yep. Like, I mean, most of the time it's guys like David. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, really, Totally. Yeah. And to come from there and then to be undersized and then to have that injury, not once did you say, oh, well, I didn't, you just, okay, well, I have that, so how do I overcome it? You know what I mean? And that getting over that victim mentality is huge. Totally. So many kids go, and then it's like, well, did you have your grades right? Okay, well, have you reached out to all the coaches? Have you performed on the field the way you were supposed to perform? Oh, well, coach didn't do that, and it's always somebody else's fault. You know what I mean? I don't even think anybody would have thought about that, but there's so many times where you could have made yourself a victim, and you never have. You know what I mean? And that's another huge gift that you have.
For sure, yeah. And I've had so many good people supporting me, like the physical therapist, the orthopedic guy who did the MRI and told me, like, hey, you'll be good. Just do this. And you have to find the right people you can trust, right? Like, I trusted the physical therapist enough to say, okay, if I'm only running 70% today, that means only run 70% today for these few times. And if I just keep trusting and doing that over and over again, that's the thing that's going to get me out of this and into whatever's next and, pull me out of it.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to your mentality on the field,
Mm-hmm.
because I think you can take this out into other things too. So again, a little bit undersized, but you always played like you were the biggest guy on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, some of the hardest hits, that I've ever seen,
Yeah.
with Winston, with JL, with Keiko, you know what I mean? And some of the, it didn't make sense physics-wise how you could go light somebody up and then pop up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you played all 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
And started an insane amount of games, you know what I mean? Where's that toughness, that mentality come from? Obviously, it's coming from home and stuff like that, but on the field, you were 100% fearless.
Yeah. I played with the mentality. And when I was a captain on the team, that's how I finished. Every time we brought it up before the game, I would say this hoping it would bleed into other guys and they'd think the same way. My mentality was always no fear, no hesitation.
Oh.
And it takes a lot to get to that point. But to have no fear, when you got to think, when are you afraid or when do you fear? Usually when you're not prepared, when there's a challenge that you don't think that you're ready for, it's too big for you to handle right away. And so I'm like, I need to make sure when I show up on Saturday, I have no fear and I don't hesitate once. Because if I do, that guy's a lot bigger than me. And if he gets going and I hesitate, that's not like bad ball, not good position for 2-8. But if I have no fear and no hesitation, I know I did everything from Sunday right after the last game to Monday on the recovery day. I was at yoga. I was eating the food I needed to be. I was in the film room getting ahead of what was going on. Tuesday, have a great practice or not great practice, but what do I need to do to correct those things and make sure I have no questions about what Tuesday's practice was and what part of the game plan that was. Then you stack that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, get a good night's rest, wake up Saturday, you're like, I did everything I could. I know I prepared the best I could. As long as you're controlling and doing that, there should be no fear, no hesitation, and it's a test of yourself, right? Like, I'm challenging myself to see if I can play the way that I've prepared and know that I'm capable of. And so at that point, it was just cut it loose. Like, there's nothing to fear and there's no hesitation.
Yeah, I think
I've done all those things.
Fear, I think, always comes from like uncertainty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a good and a bad thing. Like having that fear means I'm going to try to make it certain that I've prepared and did everything I possibly can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think when people get scared on game days or in a big moment or when you have a showcase or something like that, it's because deep down you didn't prepare the way you were supposed to, and now you don't know how the outcome's going to turn out. It might turn out okay, but it might not. That's where you see the guys have games like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's hard because, like, even when you do everything possible that you can, there's still so many variables and factors that you can't control. So, like, just give yourself the best shot, dude, and let it fly, Right. And having a healthy, like, excitement and jitter before the game is good, right? You want to be, like, in a controlled, focused state of mind, but also, like, know that you're gearing up and prepping for that moment to happen, and that when it does happen, you're ready for it.
From the first time that you came in here with Kekaula, it was like a weird time in the summer, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you came with like Brett and AJ and all those guys, right?
Yeah, Jabril.
The boys. Yeah. But right away, it was like you were building every one of them up. You're building me up. Came and hugged me like you've known me your whole life,
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing the way that you treat your teammates. I've never heard you say something bad about anybody. You know what I mean? Is that unconscious, or is that something that you've practiced, or and how much do you think that's helped lead to your success?
Mm-hmm. I think it's unconscious because I don't know. I feel like I'm just another guy that's like, I'm the same as you, and I'm just a normal dude.
Like zero negativity ever.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Like that's such a huge deal. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I think it comes from that. Like, dude, I totally get it, and I relate to you, and I know you, and I understand you. We're all in this to go in the same direction. That's all. We might as well go and do it together. And there's no point in me not contributing to your success because we're all going to grow and sort of raise the tides together. And I know I'm like a lot more outside of just being the football player. So I'm like, how I treat you as a person and what I do outside of here, that's who I am, Like, I want to be the same consistent person, well-rounded in everything, not just a great guy on the football field, but then like a jerk in everything else.
Yeah.
And it's not cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the toughest things that I have is everything that you do with the highest intent. You know what I mean? And, the quote with that where it's like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. and everything that you do has the highest intent. And I could tell from the beginning, you know, even the way, I mean, Brett was the same way. You know, Brett was fighting for his life. You want to play in the NFL like he still is. You know, Jabril and AJ, my boys, but sometimes they're in here having fun. You know what I mean? But you literally came in and you raised the intensity of everybody every time that you ran. You know what I mean? Even if I had it, hey, we're not racing right now. I mean, it was like you were bloodthirsty after everything. You know what I mean? Which I loved. And now seeing you in work, talking with your colleagues and some of the guys that have helped mentor you there in there as well. Obviously, it sounds like you had a good circle when you were younger. You know, your family, sports helped you get there. If you were trying to teach somebody else to do that, because it's so hard to do that, to where it's even the way that you organize your office or handle your car or just treat a stranger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like you can treat a stranger like shit and then all of a sudden turn around and be nice to somebody else. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, how I guess, I mean, do you have anything on that, on how you would do that?
I think where that comes from, like, in me is I'm kind of a perfectionist by nature. I don't know where that came from, and I care enough. Like, if my name or stamp is going to be on this, I want it to be the best possible and try to reach perfection in that. It's hard to get there, but that's the way I, like, approach anything, school, work, just going through a warm-up or a recovery day. Like, I want my stamp on this to be that I did the best I could, and I care so much about it that I'm going to put everything I can into it and try to be perfect at it. Now, when you can correlate and translate that to every area of your life, if you're not doing that, like, you need to be the same person consistently, because if you're not, you're lying to yourself or other people somewhere. And when you go to bed at night, you know where those areas were. And so just being aware of that, of like, at some point it's gonna come through and shine through of like, this is who this person is. So if you're consistently the same dude day in and day out in the way you treat for and care for people, long after you're done doing whatever it is, everything is just a season, but everybody's going to remember who you were to them and how you treated them or how you helped them. And so, like, now that I'm on, you know, this side of football and being graduated and done and fully out of that, I'm in a new season of life. But people that I was in contact with in that season, you know, I hope that they can call me and remember a laugh that we had or stories that we shared and who I was with them there and how I treated them and, you know, respected them for who they were.
I love it. You know, both of us had great families growing up. Mine was similar. You know what I mean? Dad never graduated high school or anything like that, but he was, I mean, just people say that your actions speak louder than words. He was the hardest working person, still is. I wish he didn't work so hard now. But it's the hardest working guy I've ever been around. So that was easy for me to see. My mom never treated anyone bad. You know what I mean? I definitely have treated people bad, but she helped me see that to where I learned that later in life. I have some kids that aren't in the same environments, you know, or even older kids or adults to where it's like they didn't have the same support system that we had, you know. We didn't have a ton of money, but my parents would do anything for me. You know what I mean? I've tried to think about this where I have, like, I'm dealing with I can just think about an individual right now struggling upstairs, and he doesn't have a ton of support besides his teammates, but it's hard for him to kind of see that, you know? How do you think, would we have been able to see it? And maybe even if we weren't, how would we have been able to maybe get out of that environment? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've had other teammates or classmates or friends that were the same way. It's like, if only you could see and somebody told you or showed you, like, where you could be if you did a couple things differently. I think our responsibility is to just plant that seed and show whoever it is what is possible and what we see in them. Because when you get stuck in this, like, and are beating yourself down, it sometimes takes somebody else to sort of step back from the battle lines and be like, okay, here's what's actually going on and what I think you can do or be if you want to do that. Like, help me understand who you want to become or what your goals are, and let me kind of show you what the finish line looks like. And if I don't know what that looks like, let's go find somebody who does. Yeah. And, you know, I've seen the finish line in a couple things in football and school and those things. So if there's that, I can help you with that. I can show you what having success or reaching, you know, some of your goals in that is. And then if you get a taste of it and you want it bad enough, then hopefully it clicks that, like, okay, now if I just do these things or switch my perspective or mentality on it, I know I can get there because somebody else has done it and believes in me enough to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like I had those people that were like, you can do it, and I believe in you, like, do these things, or imagine what that could be if you do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
You know, so I think it's just planting a seed, because you also can't do it for them. Like, I can't live your life for you or make you work harder or make you want it more than you do, but I can at least show you what's possible.
Yeah. I think the modeling is huge. Having a role model and having
Mm-hmm.
somebody in front of you and finding that figure. And I think the one nice thing about social media is I've had some huge mentors from social media that I've never met and will never meet.
Yeah.
But they showed me a life, whether it was a facade or not, but I took the good things from it, you know what I mean? That has, like, helped me a ton, you know what I mean? And I still read and follow all of their stuff, you know? And you obviously have a lot of negative mentors on social media as well, too, the message they're portraying. But that's what I try to show my kids, or I think about now that I'm a father now, you know what I mean? I want to be the biggest leader I can have, too, but also who do I want to surround themselves with? Who do I want them to see and mirror and do stuff like that? So I think that's one of the biggest things. I think when you're going through a rougher time, or sometimes I get kids where dad's talking about how negative they are right next to him, like, why the kid's here. And like, you know, they obviously think their dad's the coolest guy in the world. Yeah. And for dad to do that, now they have nothing. So where if I'm like, hey, I think you can do this, them believing me over believing their dad, they're not going to believe us. Right. You know what I mean? So for them to try to find somebody that they look up to that, you know, that maybe has been in a similar situation, I think is huge. And that's always trying to work on that, you know, or, you know, even where moms are on the court and, you know what I mean, and think their kids, their whole life is sports. And you said, you know, you were more than a football player, you know, and that's hard. I mean, I started this company because I didn't know if I was more than an athlete. I was never even that athletic, but I mean, really. Yeah. Because it was like I wanted to keep playing. Right. You know what I mean? I wasn't good enough to keep playing. Yeah. But now that I figured that out, it's huge. You know, so I think a role model is next level. Yeah. It gives you, like, you get to watch the movie, or you get to see visually or hear or feel like what it is. Yeah. If you don't have even a clue of what it could be, it's hard to get started or know what you're working towards. And that's why I think sports is so awesome, because you're going to have somebody on your team that has had a good life and is a good person. Yeah. And I think you can use them to help. You know what I mean? You can also, you know, play the victim card to where, look, they had it better than me, or it's like, hey, there is a way out. Totally. You know? And I try to, like you said, try to have those teammates have that positive influence on them. And that's why I think sports is so awesome. And even later in life, like, kids, let's go into when you went undrafted to the Cardinals. And let's talk about how that played out, because another issue that I had, girls and guys, where they have smaller schools that want them to go play college, they're like, man, I'm just going to go start working, or I'm just going to go to college. And I'm like, play them until they hang them up, because you can work the rest of your life. Yep. And whether you're 29 or whether you're 30 and you started at 1 year earlier, when you're that age, it's not going to matter. Totally. You know, and so trying to get somebody to realize that at 18, which is tough because you want to make money, you want to do it, and like, man, I don't know about sports, man. I don't know how I would have done college without sports. Totally. You know? Yeah. But to be able to do both is unreal, you know what I mean? So when it was time for you to hang it up, how hard was it? And how did that process go? Yeah. Honestly, hanging it up was easy. Okay. Because I didn't regret anything that I did my entire playing career. Goes back to the preparation. Yeah, and I knew once I finished playing college, I said, okay, I want to play in the NFL. I'm going to have that as my goal. If I'm going to go as far as I can and as long as I can doing that. I want to play at the highest level and be the best player that I can be. As soon as that's done, or whenever the time comes where I can't do that anymore, I'm going to be good. Like, I don't need to go and play, not that other leagues aren't as good. Like, I don't want to play in Canada. I don't want to play in Japan. I don't want to play in the XFL, USFL. Like, I want to be at the top. And if I'm not that, then I know I gave it everything I could. I maxed it out. And every step of the way, I just poured everything I could into it. So hopefully when I look back at that point, I don't have anything I wish I would have done or squeezed the juice from. So when I got to that point, towards the end of working out here, and I'm like, every day up until that point, I'm still going, like, I'm getting a call this afternoon and I'm going to go play somewhere. And then it got to the point where I was like, I'm not getting the call, but
even for the last 3 months, I was here every day doing the best I could and trying to max it out and stay as ready as possible. And knowing that I did all of that up until the day where I was like, I'm good. I have something else that I'm passionate about and want to jump into. I know what that next goal is. I got everything that I needed from this game, and I don't have anything else that I wish I would have done.
I remember those times. That was easier for you than it was for us.
Yeah.
And David, we were like, we knew you could still make that shot, but obviously you have a ton of success now, and you had other things to do. But I think it was, and again, I think that's probably why it made you so great at football, is that you were more than a football player. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was hard. That was the hard part for me. I was like, man, like, I want to still be around T and David, and like, I know I could do it if I just kept trying long enough, probably. But like, there's other doors opening up for me that sounds like a ton of fun too, and where I'm like, I'm here now. I did as much as I could, and let me just jump into this and sort of take the same game plan but apply it to a new game.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I love it. What about now because I always think sports like help me prepare for so many different things. And again, I was never the best player on the team, and I think that taught me like it was like work was going to be, that was my only leverage point that I had. I feel like I could work harder than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then that's definitely carried over into business. You know what I mean? What have you learned from athletics now, being in real life, that has helped you get to the point that you're at and be able to help you set the goals that you want to set in such a short amount of time?
Mm-hmm. Sports, at whatever level you play it at, it gives you, some sort of structure and thing that you can work towards achieving, and then set what that goal is and work backwards from there and figure out what things need to happen for you to get there. Being in the structure of Boise State football, the process, really is laid out for you to where you almost don't even need to think, and you just show up, and every day is lined up for the most part. Show up at 6:30, team meeting at 7, pre-practice walkthroughs, practice, lunch, film in the afternoon, school in between that. So it's already all laid out. The template is there. Now you get to take that and add in where you need to for your own personal growth as a player, as a student, as a person, and sort of form what the process and template is that's already laid out for you. And then, like I said, figure out what those actions are that you can really benefit from, or what are ones that you need to adjust and tweak a little bit. And I took that exact blueprint and process that I had already created and sort of figured out for myself in my 5 years at Boise State, because I did things where I'm like, don't do that again, didn't help. Did things where I was like, do that again, that really helps. And so stepping into the business world and at TOK, I was like, I can't reinvent the wheel, because that I know will help me have success. I just need to figure out what pieces need to get changed in terms of the new material that's being inserted. And so when you have film study on the calendar for an hour every morning, what's my film study in commercial real estate? Well, I need to be reading Wall Street journals. I need to be reading like Boise Dev. I need to be researching and studying what commercial real estate trends, information, and knowledge is. That's my film study.
Right.
What's my walkthrough? My walkthrough is either one, sitting down with somebody in the office to, hey, let me ask you a couple questions on how I should handle this conversation later. Playing that out before actually having the client interaction or going out into the field and working, right? How would I best go about handling this walkthrough? Well, let's go show up and do one, and just walk through it and see how I'd handle that. That's your walkthrough. What's game time? Maybe it's the client pitch. Maybe it's putting the offer together and sending it over and sorting out all the things that you've learned and sort of stress tested, and now it's go time. Let's go and play and make it happen.
How do you get to that point? So some of the hardest hires I've ever had are been the highest level athletes.
Yeah.
Because of what you said with football, to where you never had to make a choice.
Yeah.
Everything was told for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then where people will come to me and they'll be like, hey man, I played at Boise State, man. You make your face and I'll come work for you. I'm like, well, that's you might help bring somebody in the door for a week, but are you going to be able to keep them here for a year? You know what I mean? And to where if I write out A, B, C, and D, you'll do A, B, C, and D, and then E, you ain't going to figure it out. Right. If I'm not giving you all of that, you know what I mean? You probably haven't even seen that because most of the people that you work with, are ex-athletes who are similar to you. But we get some that are crazy high level, and it's like you've been told what to do your whole life. And now that and I've had a couple military guys too where they're like unreal individuals, great people. But if I'm not telling them what to do all the time, they can't figure it out. Yeah. And I struggle as a leader doing that. Yeah. Or as an owner, I don't know about a leader.
I think that like concept is super interesting because it can get to a point where it's almost a disservice to student athletes or people when there's not
enabling, right?
Yeah, when there's not enough autonomy to like try to figure it out on your own, then like mess up, and then like, okay, now we can catch you here and be like, okay, now it's here what you need to do. But I also understand why when you're in a part of a program that's 150 to 200 people,
you have to do it.
You have to, like,
right.
If there's no structure
even as a parent,
set up,
even as a parent now, I told my wife, like, she was asking me about what's one of the biggest things I stress about. It's like, I want to give them everything that I can possibly give them. Yeah. But I also want them to deal with hard times and, like, deal with failure.
It's the line.
And I'm like, how do I let them, I don't know if suffer is the right word, but, like, be in maybe not physical pain, but some sort of pain and learn how to come out of that. You know what I mean? And that's why I think sports is great, too, because how many times do you really lose in your daily life, and being very rarely, right, where, like, something is, like, life or death, like what it feels like when you lose a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do love that with sports, but I stress about that all the time. I've been a dad for 2 years, so I have no idea what I'm doing. But that's what I think about.
Yeah.
I want to give them everything,
totally,
but also teach them how to not be entitled, be dependent.
Yeah. I was talking to a former coach of mine who I'm really close with, and he's done coaching now. But we had this conversation, and he's like, you guys have to show up at 7, but now us as coaches are calling you guys at 6:15, hey, text and everybody's up and thumbs it up. Or we're calling you at 6:30 or 6:45 is there, and now we're like trying to figure out where you're at and what you're doing. And you don't have to be there till 7. But I've checked in with you now 3 times beforehand to sort of like hold your hand and make sure you're on time. Well, what if that was not there? Like, it won't be there in whatever's next. Nobody's going to be calling you like, hey, make sure you're on time for this meeting. But we've done that enough and, like, conditioned you to think somebody's always going to be there to make sure you're on time and show up and are ready to go. Whereas if maybe we just let you, hey, show up at 7 and we'll see you in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, if you show up late because you forgot to set your alarm and you care enough, like, that alarm's going to be set every day after that, and maybe 2 or 3 alarms. And it's like, hey, this is super important, and what I need to do to make sure I show up on time, right? Or I'm going to make sure I leave 10 more minutes early so I can get in there on time to be prepared to go. And I think college and even high school, if that's all you do, like, that's your time when nobody expects you to know the answers and to push the limits in terms of how great you can be. And when you fall and fail, there's going to be people that understand where you're at in life and have the perspective to say, hey, now's my time to help you through that because I know what it's like to be in college and have no idea what's happening.
Right.
But you tried and you went and you failed. I don't think failure is the word. You didn't succeed, but you learned, hopefully. And let me help accelerate that learning curve into what's next. So and I don't know the right answer of how you walk that line because I haven't necessarily had to do that as a leader or owner or a boss yet. But when I get to that point, I'm going to try to call people who have to figure out how they did it.
Go back to modeling, right?
Yeah.
You've talked about goals a bunch. We talk about them all the time here, and I think it's another huge thing. Like, one of our core values is being growth-oriented, you know what I mean? And to where we're constantly trying to do that and then teach our kids that. What goals do you have right now, and what's your process on how you make those? I mean, you're pretty dialed in. Is it all just here? Hey, I know I'm going to go get this, or I mean, are you writing things down? You have timelines on them. What's that look like for you?
First, I have to, like we were talking about, see what I could be capable of or what's out there, right? Like, okay, let's just set it as high or far out as we can. That's what's possible. seeing guys in my office or seeing guys in football who have done that, okay, that's what's possible. That's what I want to try to get to and what I want to do. So then you think, maybe why do I want to get there? Why is that important to me? Because there has to be a level of care, and it's that important to me to where I then do what it takes to get there. And when I set goals, I do more so just like high level, okay, maybe here's the number of transactions that I want to do, here's the total commissions that I want to generate, and here's what, in an ideal world, what a successful year would look like for me. Great, but to get that, there are so many reasons a deal happens or doesn't happen, and like 99% of them, most times, I have no control over. So that's just like an objective and almost arbitrary.
Especially in commercial real estate.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Especially. But if I take actions every single day to set myself up to have the opportunity to make that and try as hard as I can to get to that number, I'm going to fall somewhere around that, maybe over that, maybe less than that. But if you set it high enough and far enough out, even falling short of that for reasons maybe outside of your control, it's still probably a great year. Or I at least learned a ton of maybe don't do that next time, or maybe keep pouring into that. And so my goals really become day-to-day habits.
Go back to your habits.
Habits and actions.
That's what I was taking out of that. I think everything
that's all I've known. Yeah, that's all I've known.
I see so many goals, we talk about it a lot. Every kid comes in and wants to play for Boise State, wants to play for Michigan, now even more, Colston Loveland, the Idaho kid that plays there. Every high school kid that's a 10th grader wants to play for Michigan.
Yeah.
And then they show up late. They don't want to eat. Hey, let me get a meal plan. They don't gain any weight for the next 2 days. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or I want to go do this. And it's like you have these goals, but, the number one thing you have to do is 100% massive action. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Every time that I don't reach something, look back at it, it was because I didn't take action towards it or I didn't do enough work for it. Like, get 100%. That's what I've learned from most of the time. I don't ever reach a goal. It's like something else distracted me and I put my focus somewhere else, which could be a good or a bad thing. Maybe it led me in a good direction, not always, but I didn't take action for it, And I think that's just hearing you, like those little habits and just constantly working towards it. That's where you're always going to keep growing.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm like, I don't know. My mentality is, what's the worst that happens? Like, I fail or I don't get there. Like, I'm still right exactly where I was. I might as well go try and do it. Like
that mentality's. I think that just comes natural to you. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a huge gift. I think that's awesome. I think you double down on that because a lot of people don't have that.
There's so much upside and what's the downside?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
Might as well go try it.
Yeah, mine's for me to achieve a goal. And looking at any ones that I've actually achieved, it's 100%. I got to write them out, and then I have to make the blueprint. Now the blueprint sometimes is literally like on a napkin, or I had a calendar here. It's flipped upside down, or on this whiteboard that looks like it's scribbled with my daughter's drawings all over. But it's literally just putting it. So, for example, getting this building. Mm-hmm. Lost a partner and I split, zero money. The place I was at, we didn't have to pay a lot of rent. We started killing it. Now they wanted to make us pay way too much rent. It was like, okay, I had to figure out how to own my own place. When they first told me, I was like, I'm never going to be able to own my own place because of starting back over to zero financially. Went and had a mentor. I went to a bank one time. I just went to them. They said, this is what it needs to look like in your bank account. And I was like, and on your statements. And it was easy. I just took a map, went backwards. It was probably on a half a piece of paper.
Yep.
3 years, went as hard as I could, and that was the only goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And was able to make it happen. Right now, we're trying to build a medical side of Off the Field where we're actually helping control the therapy and work with partnering with the surgeon. And then we have to get our third building, you know what I mean, in that Northwest Meridian where the new freeway, close to Hawaii High School and Star and Emmett and Middleton. And literally, it was kind of stressing me out last year because of how hard it was going to be. And now just putting it on paper and writing it out, it's like there's 5 big steps that I got to do to make it happen, and those are going to be hard to do, but there's 5 steps.
Yeah.
It's not what it's like, oh, well, I got to do this, and this. When you write it out, when it comes down to it, it's like I got to get pre-qualified. I got to make sure I get the LLC with the surgeon. I got to get the right therapy. We got to write the protocols.
Yeah.
Then that's it.
then it's out of your head, and you're not like swimming in.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing I do in my day to day. I have a running sheet on my iPad of, okay, here's today's date, here's the boxes of all the tasks I need to do, and now when I look at it, I'm like, that's kind of not it, but sometimes the list is long, but it's like, okay, now I at least see in one place what all those things are.
Right.
I can prioritize it by order it needs to happen or how important each of them are. But then I at least can see, and I'm not just thinking, oh, shoot, that needs to happen. Oh, gosh, now this needs to happen, then that needs to happen. And then you're like, wait, if I just write it down, it's really not that much. And now you can just easily digest and knock out one of them at a time.
It's so simple, but it causes so much anxiety for me when I don't have it wrote out.
Yeah.
And I listen to my kids too, and my wife, my family, my coaches, you know what I mean? When you write it out, the anxiety goes away. And then sometimes you write it out and you're like, okay, that's not a real goal.
Yeah.
It's not realistic and achievable. Or it's a goal I don't really think that's not what I wanted. I actually wanted something that was going to get out of it. Do you know what I mean? So just doing that simple thing, I think, is huge. And then, like you said, it's not about doing it once. But if you can stack those days on top of each other, I mean, it's crazy how much you can achieve in a short amount of time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Keep doing it and look back later.
That's probably been the biggest change for me with this company is when I lost the place, like what David talked about with you, putting other people first, you know what I mean? And then writing out my goals. Mm-hmm. And doing that, there's so many things that you can achieve, Yeah. I think I struggle with a little bit of never having a plan B to where I maybe stress out the people around me to where it's like I have to go do this, and my wife or my man Cherry over here or somebody else, where it's like if I think I'm going to do something, we're going to go do it. And if there's no way to fail, and which I love your mentality, which I try to tell myself in the grand scheme, what's it going to hurt if I don't get there? Probably going to hurt my ego, and that's about it. And the ego is only what I think about myself. Nobody's paying attention to the stuff I'm doing. You know what I mean? To where it's like, or maybe there's 3 people, but who cares what they think about me? Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's usually that's usually like where, if that would be the only thing, if I didn't reach the goal, I won't maybe have the same amount of money or work with the right teams that I wanted to work with. You know what I mean? But we're still where we're at. I still have this place. I still have my family. I still have my health. Yep. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, it's like what actually hurt. It was like what I thought other people thought about me.
Yeah, and I still have the system and actions in place for all the stuff we're doing now, right? That are going to continue to organically grow. Yeah. Now this is just the next step for, hey, let's see what's possible out there and see what happens. Yeah. It's I come across that like with my parents or brother or whoever. Should I apply for this job or should I try to go and do this? Like, okay, what if you don't apply for it? Then I just keep doing what I'm doing now. It's like, okay, so why wouldn't you apply for it? Just go do it. Yeah. They're going to tell you no. Yeah. Okay. Like, all right. Next. You've already been doing this for 5 years or next. Whatever, Yeah. It is what it is. Right. Move on. Snap and clear.
So what do you do now?
Now, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing now. So, I work at TOK Commercial. I'm a commercial real estate agent. I focus primarily on office, and that's the asset type or class that I do most of my work in, but do a little bit of smaller flex industrial, some land stuff, a little bit of retail. And so I'm yes man right now. Like, you want to take on this lead or go do this? Yep, sounds great. You want to run this down? Yep, easy. Let's do it. Because I have time, and hopefully I get to a point in my career where I have less time because there's so much stuff going on. But in the meantime, I can get reps over and over and over again in the commercial real estate world. And so right now where I'm at, officially 1 year into this career as of a couple weeks ago, my day-to-day operations is helping and serving people when they need to buy, sell, or lease commercial real estate and figure out what that looks like either for their personal investment portfolio or their businesses, plans and goals and steps. And so my day-to-day is just making sure I have a positive impact on the people around me, whether it's in the office or it's my clients who I'm working with. And so that's what the flow's like now, but it's been fun creating and figuring out what the adjusted and adapted, process and flow is, and getting more comfortable in that. And now seeing after 1 year, okay, here's where I can be better and continue to grow, and like what year 2 could be.
Yeah.
Now knowing what I've learned in year 1.
2 things on commercial real estate. One, TOK, so that Thornton Oliver, so Peter Oliver, I was just told to reach out to one time, and he's, I think he does more commercial deals than anybody in the Northwest or something. He was one of the highest guys, and he always picks up my phone. He always is there to help. It's cool. The number one piece of advice, and the way he said the only way he'll keep working with me and picking up the phone is if I do a date night every night with my wife. Yeah. Which was crazy to me. He's such a good dad, good wife, but he also answers the phone when a random guy. And I called him when I was probably 25. So you know what I mean? That had no idea what I was doing in business. He picks it up. This lease up front, I had no idea how to do that. He helped give me the framework, kind of gave me a blueprint, talked to me about rates and stuff like that. Never even, no invoice, no charge. I mean, to this day, I still call him, you know what I mean? And so I think it's a sweet and it's an awesome company that you're working for. And I think the reason why they've had success is because of guys like that. And I know you're working with Al Marino. We worked with his kid. He was awesome. And Dan Menard and all those guys. How you're willing to do that right now, year 1. One of my best friends, he'll be on the podcast. He's a CBRE. I think I've connected you with him, Jake Miller.
Yeah, Jake. Yep.
We were both kind of on the same grind where people were like, man, like our friends are trying to get us to go do other things and different things like that. A few of our friends, we have a lot of successful guys, but he didn't make a ton of money for a lot of years, and then now he's absolutely killing it. And now people are like, oh man, what are you doing? And he's like, he was trying to get him to do it, but he was willing to do those things, to sacrifice at the beginning. It's like showing up as a redshirt freshman or showing up as a freshman. You know what I mean? Do everything you can to get in the game. And now he's killing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's awesome that you're doing that.
Peter's a great mentor, and he's one of the first guys I sat down with when I was looking for where I wanted to be at and chatting through what his day-to-day is and why he's in commercial real estate and why I should or shouldn't be, right? Like, help me understand why would I do this, or what things to think about of maybe why not to do this. But he's the prime example of it's blocking and tackling. He says that he played in college at a University of San Diego, and he's like, you're learning right now all of the fundamentals. You're learning blocking and tackling. What is that? It's picking up the phone. It's answering emails, texts, calls, within 24 hours. It's showing up for the tour and the showing. It's having the conversation. It's like all of these little things are just the fundamentals and the building blocks, and blocking and tackling, keep doing it. And you just stack chips. And then next thing you know, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I learned so much, and I'm so glad I did all of those things, because whether the deal happens or the deal doesn't happen, well, I learned something, either one about my process in the deal flow. I maybe learned something about what that type of tenant's needs might be. I learned something about what that property and building is like, or there's like all these gems that you can just pick up. Every deal has different
nuances that you'll use later.
Yep. Whether you close a deal or the deal doesn't work out. And so it's been, blocking and tackling for me, and I'm super blessed to be at TOK and feel like I stepped out of Boise State with the coaches and the support, and I jumped in to TOK looking for, hey, I need a position coach, I need a head coach, I need a defensive coordinator, but in commercial real estate, So I feel like I've found that team with great guys that are awesome to work with, so it's been great.
Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on. Miss you.
Yeah, miss you guys too, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Seriously, appreciate how I don't even think you realize it, because like you said, it's unconscious, but how much you do for the community and everybody around you, man. You're the man. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.